It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
A strong, positive sense of self-esteem is your first step to anything you wish to accomplish. Yet too often, when we attempt to leave our comfort zone, we have that chorus of inner critics inside our heads, the itty-bitty shitty committee, as I like to call mine, whispering self-sabotaging doubt and untrue trash talk in our ear. This podcast celebrates women who rise above and move beyond any self-doubt and old, outmoded limiting beliefs. Women who have reconnected with who they truly are, that gorgeous, talented, fabulous gift to the world who deserves recognition and unconditional love. My hope is that their insights inspire all of you to do the same. You know, the most beautiful thing any woman can wear is confidence. Here on Confidence in Bloom with the Divas That Care Network, I, Tina Spolatini, speak with women now secure in their own self-confidence so we can learn from their stories of how they found themselves and became the magnificent role models they are to us all now. Today, I'm talking with Julianne Wutke. Julianne is a vibrant living expert and certified health coach, helping women over 50 look and feel better than ever. Women come to her when nothing else seems to work, to help resolve their big health and wellness challenges. What makes her coaching so successful is that she helps women level up their old habits for better ones. Her clients know the feeling of finally making those positive changes they want most and making them last. Julianne's path of helping others began when she found help to solve her own health issues. Now she loves helping other women to do the same. Welcome, Julianne.
No, thank you. It's so fun to be here.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to this because, I'm in that same age group, right? And it's always good to know, what can I do to make to make that positive change in my life? Tell me more a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, my husband and I were business partners years ago. After we first got married, we had a photography studio. But previous to that, as far as being a business owner, entrepreneur, I kind of got the bug. I realized that I could do that and that I really, really wanted to do that. It was pretty well suited for my personality. Back when I was working in Hollywood, I thought I wanted to get into the film industry. And my manager at the company I was working for decided that I was well suited for sales, talking to people, not just being in a dark room processing things, but actually working with people. And I was kicking and screaming against that, out of my comfort zone, of course. And the word sales was a dirty word to me. I didn't know any better. And anyway, and then I started earning commission. And then I was hooked. I thought, so not only do I get some kind of an hourly wage, whatever my employer decides to pay me, or whatever my salary might be, but I can actually kind of write my own paycheck. Wow. And I did not have any problem. My work ethic was good. No problem doing what it would take to, pursue whatever success I wanted to pursue. So anyway, that's how I got started. I was never afraid of, a little afraid. It felt like jumping off a cliff sometimes when I'd start a new business or a new endeavor. But, you got to have that inner confidence that no matter what, you're going to somehow land on your feet, right? So
right. So you basically have mastered the stepping out of your, out of the comfort zone, right?
I would love to say mastered. I would love that, Tina.
Yeah. Well, what's that phrase? Like nothing ever comes good of being in your comfort zone, right? You need
100%.
to stay, you need to learn, you need to know how to step out of it comfortably.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Everything, I think I heard this many years ago. Everything we want is just outside of our comfort zone.
Right.
And boy, that is so true. Right.
Right. Nothing is, because if we had everything that we wanted, right, we can't, there's always something more, right? There's
Right.
always something outside of that box.
Oh, there's always something new to learn, especially as women, we have to embrace that growth mindset. Otherwise, and because we go through different ages and stages and the world changes and we can't just try to stay the same because that's a fallacy. Nothing stays the same. We must keep learning and growing and accepting the changes that are happening in ourselves and our families and everything. So,
Right. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. Although I have to say I get stuck very easily, right? And
mhm,
even though I'm working on, you know, what's the word? I want to say bettering myself, right?
mhm,
Growing.
mhm.
I often will be like, okay, that's too much for me. Right. And then I stop myself. But
Yeah,
I have a question. So what
yeah.
about women, like, women in their 70s?
Mhm.
I'm going to say it's my mom, right?
Okay.
She's like, she's okay. She's not a negative person, but she is now that she's in her 70s.
Mm,
She's kind of bitter, right?
mhm,
I'll be
mhm,
honest, right? But her story now that she tells herself is that I've lived my life.
mhm,
What more can I look forward to? Right.
hmm,
So basically, and she said this to me during COVID, actually. She said, I've lived my life. There's no future for me.
mhm,
Right. Now I'm just waiting for my days to come to an end. And
hmm,
I'm like, whoa, like,
mhm,
and of course I'm thinking, well, why does it have to be that way? Like, if you're going to live another 20 years into your
mhm,
90s, that's how you want to spend the next 20 years,
mhm,
right? How do you, like, I don't know what the word is, but how do you, I mean, obviously, a woman like my mom would not come to you. She wouldn't say, I want more, because to
mhm,
her, she thinks she's done. But if
mhm,
you happen to run into a woman, say in the grocery store, and
mhm.
she makes a comment like that to you, how would you respond to that?
Oh, I would probably, if depend on if I knew her or not, of course, but I would probably just, you know, make it kind of a little joke. I like, gosh, you must be looking forward to something, because I think it's important to always be looking forward to something. And some people are not open to hearing anything else but what they've already got going on. But I think it doesn't hurt to just keep have some compassion for people like that, and to keep listening to them, and especially if you're related to them and they're in your close circle of family and friends, just keep inviting them to things. Just keep sharing with them. Just keep, you know what, if you care about them, keep them in your circle. And like I said, don't lose touch with them. And who knows? People have an amazing capacity for resilience. Even when you think, oh, they are so just that way, it is truly amazing what human beings are capable of.
Yeah, I believe that because I see that in my dad.
Mm,
During COVID, he was like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, he had me scared, actually, because I was more afraid of his mental health than
hmm,
anything, right? Because he was like, so we can't do this, we can't do that. And, and it wasn't like him. He's very social and he loves people.
hmm,
But now, like, every day he's got somewhere to go. Right. And I,
hmm.
and I love that about him because that's going to keep him young, right?
Absolutely.
That's like,
Yeah.
and he's a people person, so he needs people energy, right?
Hmm.
He's not one to, like, he's not a gardener, he's not, so he doesn't keep
Yeah.
himself busy that way, which
Hmm.
I do love. And I know there's many people, I mean, it can't be just my dad that's like that, right?
Absolutely.
My
Yeah.
mom, like, there's lots of, people that get to a certain age where they think, well, it's over now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember my grandparents in their 80s, they did the same thing every day, right? On my
Hmm.
mom's side. My dad's side, they were always busy. Like,
Hmm.
when my grandpa got sick, I was like, oh my God, I don't even know how to deal with that
Hmm.
because he was such a busy person, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's get into the topic of, dealing with women and helping them better their lives even after 50.
Yeah.
So you're probably talking mostly with women that are empty nesters, right? They're transitioning from sort of, well, an old life into a new life. I'm going to
Yeah.
guess.
Every age there's a lot of transition with every decade of our lives. in every
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
yes,
For
I
sure.
would say primarily women 50. Actually, a lot of my clientele are in their 70s.
Wow.
With all of the baby boom generation, that huge, big
Hmm.
jump in the population post World War II. There are a lot of women who they're financially well off or at least stable. Maybe their husband is passed. Or maybe they're just kind of their husband, the two of them are just trying to refigure their relationship because things have changed. And the kids have been grown and flown for a while. Maybe the grandkids are around. So, or yeah, I mean, that's probably at the one end of the, you know, type of women I work with in their 70s, even 80s. But then you're right, there are quite a few who are just navigating perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. Kids are either in college or just about to go, whatever the case may be, and that's a big transition, as we all know. Maybe they're like looking at retirement possibly and not really sure. Maybe they're being downsized in their job and have to pivot and do something else or choose not to. That's a big thing too. So, yeah, but I would say between 50 and 65, I think, are probably the age where women just finally have to say, okay, there's some things going on here, some things I like, some things I don't like. Um, all of maybe the physical and emotional things I don't like, I'm not getting the help I need. I mean, that's basically it. A lot of women, their doctors want to write them a prescription for everything, and they know
Hmm.
that, but they just know that that's not really the answer, you know?
Luckily, they know that that's not the answer.
Yeah, I think most women do sense that. They know it's not going to come in the form of a pill, make them instantly, be able to adjust to their life
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that that's just money making anyway, right?
Hmm.
So let's go with physical health and
Hmm.
wellness. And how does it impact, like a woman as she ages, her confidence, her self-esteem?
Oh gosh, everything about that. And by wellness, we mean we're taking into account her state of mind and how clearly she's able to think. A lot of that, believe it or not, is nutritional. I mean, nutrition has a huge amount to do with how resilient our brains are. A lot of us like to do the crossword puzzles or learn something new, and that's all great for keeping your brain spry and healthy. Learning new things. But there's a huge nutritional component as well. What they're finding is that people who have insulin resistance, a lot of times, maybe your doctors maybe said something about being pre-diabetic, or maybe people with type 2 diabetes, that could lead to a lot of other chronic conditions. And it actually does affect your brain health as well, as they've found out that sometimes people who have insulin resistance earlier in life, decades later, they actually develop dementia. So that's huge. And of course, insulin resistance is very much related to what we're eating, how we're eating, that sort of thing. So in our culture, I mean, we're set up not for success. I think you and I talked about this before. You walk into the grocery store and you're hit with, all of the marketing for all the foods you probably don't want to eat. And what do we see on television, right? They're drinking alcohol and eating pizza, not necessarily the things we should do all the time. But yeah, so I would say basically health and wellness huge, because there are a lot of people running around out there with brain fog, not realizing that it could very much be related to food triggers. Just so many things out there. And there's a way you can kind of test this out for yourself. You can go get tests, right? Especially if you go to a functional medicine doctor or someone who's got a little more holistic mindset. Lots of tests you can take to measure any of these things, like what foods are you reacting to. But one of the easiest and simplest things is just to, start eliminating a few things from what you're eating and seeing how you feel, seeing what the difference is, and then go back and see if something pops back up again that you don't like. Anyway, but that's a whole process. I don't know if that answered your question. I get off on tangents.
No, it's all good, but that's how we learn. That's how we learn because if you answer the question, just straight, this is the answer. There's never really just one straight answer, right?
No.
I
Yeah.
mean, we all know, and if you don't go on a tangent, right, then you know, our symptoms won't come up, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all going to be dealing with different things. Although I know brain fog is huge.
Yeah.
Brain fog is huge with people in general. I've
Mhm.
heard men now starting to complain about brain fog. I'm like, what
Mhm.
is going on? But
Yeah.
then, like you said, if it's the nutrition, we're not giving our body the you know the nutrition that it needs. It's going to affect all of us, not just
Yeah.
the women. Yeah.
True. And also a lot of it is, again, back to the wellness piece of it, the health, the wellness being our mental capacity and our mental state. Stress is actually both. It's totally mind body physiological. And a lot of people don't understand just how much chronic stress that they're putting themselves through every day. They're not able to de-stress. So I have a lot of, and all of these things I'm saying, by the way, I have a lot of great curated information. I call them white papers. They're basically like 1-2 page, that's it, PDFs that if somebody has issues with sleep, boom, here's some great tips and
Oh, that's great.
why
Yeah.
this might work. You have an issue with this, boom, here you go. Try this sort of a thing. So all of those things are available to people for free.
Right. Oh, that's excellent to know.
Yeah.
That's great, and we will be sharing your information in the show notes. So I want to ask you, how do you define self-confidence, and do you think that it's important to have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, this is kind of remember I was looking at some of your questions prior to today, and it's funny because then I realized, okay, self-confidence, that's kind of a circular question, is like what, the self-esteem, self-confidence, it's a circle, isn't it, really? But self-confidence, I think that comes from um, just being able to tap into your own feeling of self-worth or self-esteem. And it doesn't take much, because even if someone is extremely shy, very timid, would say that they don't have much confidence at all, they know that there are probably one or two or many things that they do really well, like better than anybody else. I mean, just totally kicking ass with whatever this is that they do, and they know it, So sometimes if you need a little boost, like you're just about to do something that you feel like you need to bolster a little of your confidence, you can just remember some of those things that you are extremely good at. And then once you do the thing and your confidence kind of was bolstered and you actually did pretty well getting through whatever that situation was, that actually comes right back and kind of bolsters your own feeling of self-esteem. So it's kind of like one is the other. And yeah, hard to operate in life if you don't have at least a little bit of both. And it's like a
Right.
muscle. We can increase it. We can
Oh, yeah,
strengthen it.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you don't have to be any age to do that.
No,
Right.
not at all. Right.
No. Yeah. And I also think too, like someone who's shy is not necessarily not confident, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, the way I see it is someone who's shy just doesn't like to be the center of attention,
Mhm.
right? Whereas, because I like to think I'm a confident person, but I can be shy. Like there's times where I hate walking into a room by myself,
Right.
because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to know anyone there. And I do walk in a little bit shy, and I will never say timid because I'm a big woman. Right. But I'll walk in and I have to like really take a feel for the room before I'll really go up to someone and start a conversation. Now, of course, if there's somebody that I know in the room, I will usually slide right up to that person.
Right.
And my confidence will then, just glow. But I can be shy, but I'm an extrovert, right? As you probably already figure out, right? And so, shy and introvert usually go together, right? But I think they're two different things.
Yeah, they're kind of, one's more probably just a personality tendency, and one is just how it shows up in the world. Sometimes when people, it's not that they're they just don't want to be around people, but there are some people that need to just recharge by themselves. They'll go out, they'll they'll be social or see the family or be out in public and or go to work and do what they need to do, but they don't want to stay with a bunch of people. They need quiet, they need alone time, they need Zen work with their hands or whatever to do
Yeah.
that recharge. And then there are other people, no, their recharge is hanging out with other people. After work, they want to go out to the happy hour, they want to go out to the party or to do the thing with their friend. That's how they recharge. So it's more of that kind of a preference. One's not better than the other.
No, it's just the way, like, it's just the way their body works, or their,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's their body or their brain or their body's energy. I'm not really sure, but that's what they need. Yeah, I like that. So what tips could you, like, when you're working with your clients, what tips do you share with them on being more confident or gaining that confident muscle?
Boy, I would say one of the big things, and this applies to almost everything that somebody wants to improve in their lives, tap into your intuition a little bit more. I think a lot of us have, I'm just going to say it, outsourced our intuition. Even simple things like, when is it time to eat? When the clock tells me, right? Or when my friend comes over and we'd head out for lunch or whatever it is. So I've had people even tell me before that they've actually kind of lost touch with when they start feeling hungry, when they're very hungry, when they're, not full yet or too full, or I mean, just that sort of a thing. And I think you and I talked about intuition being that whole that other sense. It's like your gut feeling about things is extremely important. And a lot of us have just ignored that feeling that our physiology is screaming at us like, oh, that person may not be so great. They might look okay on the outside, but wow, you're just getting kind of a strange feeling about them, like you can't really trust them and you don't know why. And what do? We go, oh, no, I'm going to let my mind take over, and I'm going to trust what I'm seeing here on the surface rather than what my gut instinct is telling me. So just being able to tap into that, the gut feelings, the instincts, just being more in tune with that as we go on. It takes practice sometimes, because a lot of us are way out of practice.
That's so true.
And that actually can guide what we do and how make us realize that, hey, you know what? I'm confident enough to just decline the offer to go out to whatever that person invited me to, just because I feel like I'm not going to do that right now, or just don't, or I don't want to go out with that person because I'm not really, it's kind of a hassle. They're always bugging me and they kind of stress me out. It's okay to say no to some things. It's okay to say yes to some things. If your gut instinct is saying, oh, that might be great, don't talk yourself out of it. Maybe it's a good idea to take the leap and try something new. But anyway, just being more in tune with your body wisdom is huge in
Yes.
helping you bolster your confidence.
I love that you said that, because I kind of like don't know if I ever had that, right? That listening to my intuition, right? And when I started with like personal development, and all the coaches would say to me, Tina, you know the answer to that question, right? I don't know does not exist. And I used to think, well, what is wrong with me, right? Like, why don't I know? If I'm supposed to know, right? How come I don't know? And then someone had said to me, what is your body telling you? Right? And I was like, my body is telling me to listen to my head, and my head doesn't have the answer. Right? So, and then, this lady happened to say to me, Tina, just take a minute, sit back, let your feet touch the ground, and really sink into what we just talked about. And then I realized that, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? Because then the answer came to me. And I thought, so if I do this with every question that comes up, I'll get my answer. Right? Because if I know the answer, like, I want to do this, or do I want to do this, or do I want to do that? And then I realized, okay, I get it now. And so I've caught myself telling my kids, when they want to do something, but they're not sure, I'll say to them, what does your body tell you? Right? Because I mean, we all get it in a different way. Some people hear it, some people see it, right? But I don't know all this stuff, or at least I didn't at the time. And so now I'm telling my kids, and my daughter is really catching on to it. And I'm like, this is not like, the hippie woo-woo stuff. This is real life. Like, your body knows if something is good for you or not, right? We just need to listen.
Yeah, that's great.
Or see it, or whatever, like however our body is telling us, right? I love that you brought that up, though, because once we understand what our intuition is, we can learn to like accept it and listen to it, right? Because I think if we don't, this is why the world is crazy the way it is, because everybody, like you said, has outsourced it, right? We're letting the TV and our devices think for us. Right? That's what you mean when you say outsource, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And so this is a way for us to sort of take control again. Right?
Yeah,
love that. I want to learn more about how this intuition works, because I think God gave it to us, right? I believe
it's one of our oldest methods of survival, if you think about it, right? You and I had talked about primitive humans. If you meet some stranger on the road, and the hair rises up on the back of your neck, well, be prepared. There might be something dangerous. And nowadays we meet someone and the hair goes up on the back of our necks. What do? Oh, no, I'm not going to judge them. Well, maybe you should, it's okay not to judge, but don't get in a car with them and go someplace.
Right? Yeah. Don't go anywhere alone with this person, or trust that they're going to give you what they're telling you.
Or trust that they're telling the truth, right? Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we've got to practice that, right? Because I think a lot of people don't feel that because we've ignored it for so long. Right? So now I think we're, if we just take that second or two just to sort of go, okay, what am I feeling? Right. And then react. Right.
There's a real little interesting tip I heard. This is a long time ago. I was in some kind of a seminar, and the person who was leading the seminar, he gave an example of when he was asking his wife. No, I don't think it was him. It was someone else who was relating this story. A woman was being proposed to, and the man popped the question, and the woman didn't know how to respond. She's like, "Oh, unexpected. I don't know. How do I?" She was totally in her head about it, not paying any attention to anything else, and she just wasn't sure. And he said, "Well, let's flip a coin." And then, immediately you hear that and you're like, "What?" But here's the catch: the coin, right? So you call heads. Heads, we get married. Tails, we don't. You flip the coin, you see what it is, and then you don't necessarily do what the result was. You see how you feel about it. Like, oh, we are getting married. Oh, okay, I feel good about that. Or, oh, we're not getting married. Oh, I feel relieved about that, right? So that's kind of a interesting little take. Flipping a coin sounds pretty like a terrible way to make that decision, but that's not really what you're doing. You're just getting in touch with how you feel about, if we did this, how would I feel? If we did that, right? Like imagine this scenario. Someone's making the decision for you. How do I feel about it? So I kind of like that. I told my daughter that story, and she just thought it was the worst thing. She says, "Oh, flip a coin." I said, no, let me explain.
Yeah. Yeah. So next time, when you're thinking about getting married, flip a coin.
Right. And see how you feel. Well, a lot of people actually know right away, right?
Right. Getting married but some people don't. Right.
You're right.
Like you hear lots of times where after they're on their second marriage, they'll say like, "Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought I knew, but I didn't know." Right.
Yeah.
Now,
exactly.
Also, people change, right? So what you know today, you might not know tomorrow. Like I get that part too. Right. Wow. That's cool. That's an interesting take for sure. So when you're working with your clients, are there specific hormonal or psychological changes that they experience that can affect their confidence levels?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you help them navigate them? I'm actually,
yeah.
I know the answer to the question. There are. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a kind of a rhetorical question, I guess, because we, as women, we all know that.
Right? As we get through, like when we hit our 40s, we're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this didn't happen to me when I was 20.
Yeah, well, even men, they go through hormone changes. It usually kicks in a little bit later. They call it andropause. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but there are changes in their hormones as well. So it's just not quite the same, right, as what we women go through. But I would say number one is really just decades before you, like maybe as early as 30, 35, most of us during that age are busy, we're raising kids, or we're in the thick of our careers, or we're just moving all the time. And that's a good time, though, to really start taking better care of ourselves. It sounds ridiculous to some of us, because if you had told me that when I was 35, I would have said, oh, no, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. I know. I'm thinking back when I still had very small kids, and I'm thinking there was no time for me.
No time for anything, right? Except
Yeah.
the bare minimum. But you can still, it's amazing what you can accomplish for even when you're very, very busy and you feel like there's just no time to carve out. There's always a way, and it's totally in our it works in our favor to do that, because as we progress along our journey, our kids get older, they require less time from us. Maybe our career gets a little bit more on a path, and we don't have to be so crazy and stressed about it. And as time goes on, you don't want to look back and say, oh, you know what? I really wish I had started doing that when I was in my mid 30s, or maybe when I was 40, instead of waiting. Not that there's any, I mean, not that we can't make a huge difference as we get older, but it's all back to eating well, knowing how to eat, knowing what to eat. Big thing. I mean, there are a lot of food myths out there that people still believe. So I help them with that a lot. Anyway, also exercise. People thinking they can go to a gym and sweat off all of the bad food that they ate. Or all the alcohol that they had over the weekend. Everyone. I mean, I used to think that, just sweat it out, run it off, go to the gym, whatever. Yeah, so none of those things are are good.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, no. So I would say the better we can actually balance our lives, our stress levels, even balance our hormones before we get to a point in our lives where naturally those things are rebalancing themselves. Because that's really what it is. It's not like, oh my gosh, I just fell off the hormone cliff and now my life is berserk and I'm having all these symptoms. No. That usually starts long before, and it has a lot to do with how we're treating ourselves, our stress levels, again, what we're eating. Are we taking hormone birth control? That's a big one that I did for years.
Yeah.
Every woman's got to decide that for herself, but that is a big deal. And I think it's good to have every woman who's on that rethink that. So anyway, all of these things make it if you're taking better care of yourself in all ways, that makes it a much easier transition when we finally get to our 40s, 50s, 60s. And that's when our hormones are naturally going through more of a change. So I hope that helps. It's like, take better care of yourself earlier, or start a few habits, maybe, even if you don't have time to think or whatever. Start a couple of things, just a couple.
Yeah, for sure. And so I had a lady that I talked with about menopause a few weeks ago, and we talked about this and how, like, when we're in our 20s and 30s, our PMS stage is a high indication of how our menopause state will be. Right. And our perimenopause. And so what we're experiencing as PMS in our 20s, when most of us are not even childbearing, right? When we reach perimenopause after childbearing years, right? We know it's just an extension or a stretch of what we've already been through, right? Only now the hormones they're coming to an end. So they're like all over the place, right? So that's where, if we know, okay, so I'm going to be PMSing on this week, I need to know that I need to make sure that I do this, this, and this, right? And the other 3 weeks of the month, I need to make sure that I'm drinking water, I'm eating good foods, like good, healthy, nutritious foods. And then that will help us as we get older.
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And they're saying now, like, lifting weights now, they're not saying you have to be like, like weight builder bound, right? But if bringing in weights in your regular, like resistant training into your regular workout routine, just to build those muscles, because if you're prone to osteoporosis, those muscles will protect your bones longer. Right. And I think that's kind of where you were going with that when you're saying, eating, like looking after yourself in your 30s and, late 20s, early 30s, because at 35, that's when perimenopause really will start. Right.
Yeah.
Most of us don't realize it until the last 4 or 5 years before menopause. Right. And so that could be 10 years, could be 15 years. Right. That's a lot of, like, we're losing a lot of estrogen and a lot of stuff in our bodies, right? I don't want to use proper words because I don't really know like the medical terms or anything like that. But I mean, had we known that 20, 40 years ago, right, then, most of us that are in our perimenopause stage now wouldn't be where we are, suffering the way we are, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're like, we can't go backwards. Right. Yeah. We can't do what we didn't do then, but we have to sort of make up for it. I tell all my kids when they bring their friends over, all the young girls, 25 and under, have been on birth control since they were like, 14, 15 years old, because they had, menstrual problems. And that was the answer. These people are putting, the doctors are giving them birth control. And I'm like, you guys get off the damn medicine. Right. Like, and they all look at me like I'm crazy. You're not a doctor. And I'm like, you guys, you don't know what you're doing to yourself. Right. And I've been doing that for years, know, and now my daughter is finally caught on to why, because now we're starting to see, COVID was amazing for this. It started to open our eyes to a lot of stuff that's going on out there. Right. And this birth control is not good. And here in Canada, they're starting to bring in clinics that are going to be dealing with just birth control issues and diabetes. Right. And I'm thinking, because that's where the biggest problems are now.
Yeah.
Right. So
I forgot, we're not here you mentioned the I think this is what you were referring to. And I believe it's Sarah Gottfried. It might be from her book, The Hormone Cure, Dr. Sarah Gottfried. But it was and I'm trying to remember, but there was another author as well who was recommending doing certain things during certain weeks of your cycle. Like if a menstruating woman is, has a 28-day cycle approximately, what foods and what things are best to do during this week, what is best to do during that week. It's just during like 2 or 3, 4 stages during your whole cycle, just to make it a little bit easier if you have a lot of symptoms of PMS. And it's very interesting and it's actually very effective. And I think if women really get in touch with, it's a lot of instinct again. If women start getting used to treating their body like it really wants to be treated because normally what do? We get the Midol or something, or the aspirin, or oh, here it is, I forgot, I'm this point in my cycle, whatever. And if we just get in the habit of making those changes in our lifestyle when we're menstruating still, I think that probably will go a long way to helping us as we start transitioning away from that later on in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not sure if you're in touch with like naturopath doctors or anything like that, but I have an Ayurveda coach, and she has, taught me that month or that week of the month that you are menstruating, that is your body's time to heal. right?
Mhm.
So you need to be like resting, not, you don't necessarily have to be like laying in bed for the week, but you do less, right? You do
Mhm.
less and you really allow your body to release anything that it's holding on to, right?
Mhm.
And in the old days, they used to like get together all the women that were, menstruating on a certain time, and they would have
Mhm.
like circles and they would celebrate,
Mhm.
the menstruation. And here, like in North America, we have made that time of the month a dreadful time,
Mhm.
right? Like we really are like, oh, it's that time of the month again,
Right.
right?
Right.
But truthfully, we should be celebrating it, right? and
Mhm.
and enjoying it, because we're the only humans on the earth that can experience that,
Mhm. Right.
right? So I mean, I don't know if I can celebrate it, to be honest, because there's days where I'm like, really, today, right?
Yeah, but it
Right, but
probably
at the
just
same,
feels a little bit extra nice to take it easy once in a while or do a self-care thing that week or whatever it is. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, your body knows it's coming, it's
Mhm.
warning you, right? So you should be able to sort of plan for it. Okay, well,
Right.
I'm going to make sure I have supper ready for the next 3 nights so that I don't have to do too much when I get
Mhm.
home, or whatever it has to be, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's all in our planning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny how, our conversations are going like,
I
they keep going
know.
away from like your
There's
client.
so much to say, and you keep reminding me of things.
Oh, this is why this is great. I love this because, I love to talk and learn. Like, I'm learning from you as well.
Oh.
Okay, so let's talk mindset and attitude. And how does that, you know, play a role in fostering any challenge that a woman in her 40s has?
Hmm. I think we referred back to, stepping outside your comfort zone, being willing to do that. And I think a helpful tool is what I call the reframe. And so here's something this might be a writer downer for some people if you're listening to this and you're hearing this for the first time. Um, Life happens for us because
I love that.
what do we usually say? Ah, that happened to me. Things are happening to me. Well, as if we're like the victim or something, and we have no agency, we have no say in the topic. How about life happens for me when we think back on a lot of challenges or obstacles we have faced in our lives? If you really think about it, when you can like look back and get some perspective on it, that's usually the time of our biggest growth, right? It's like that's when we said, "Oh, well, this is happening now. Yeah, we got to do something. We got to be creative." So, and then you think about it, and all the really when there were so many points in my life, I think that, oh boy, that really that really went badly, or that took a wrong turn. That went a place I didn't expect it to. But then, if that hadn't happened, then it wouldn't have taken me to this other place that was much better than anything I could have anticipated. So it was serendipity. It's like, oh, that happened, which was awful, but then that came out of it.
Right.
So yeah, so life happens for us. That's a big one.
And my grandma used to always say, everything happens for a reason, right?
Yep.
And I've heard people say, like, you meet every single person you come into contact with, there's a reason for it, right?
Mm.
You're going to learn from that, whether
Hmm.
it's a good experience or a bad experience, but
Right. Either way.
it's something you have to learn, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I mean, I see that with the younger kids, not so much like with, I mean, if I look back in my life, yes. But when I watch my kids and the people that they bring around them, there's always something that they learn from them, whether it's,
Right.
I don't want to be like them,
Right.
or, right, oh, wow, they've moved on. They used to be like me and now they've moved on. So what is that? Like, why does that happen? Right. And it's a
Hmm.
good opportunity to look in at yourself and say, wow, like they were too grown up, they wanted to move forward and I'm still stuck here,
Mm.
or vice versa, right? I've noticed that a lot, and it's funny, and I'm sure, like, I mean, people that are in their 90s have to see that,
Hmm.
right? They may not always look into themselves and say, was I the bad experience for that person, or was I the one that, pushed them to go out of their comfort zone? But, they can see that, oh, I met that person and I learned this from them. Right. Because we don't look at that, right? Like, as in general, we don't look at that, when you and I meet, right? I'm not looking at you going, gee, so I've met this Julianne. I wonder what she's going to teach. Like, we don't really do that at the moment.
Right.
But after, when you're no longer in each other's lives, you go, it was short-lived, but I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
Right. Or, like, look we're still friends. We're still,
right.
We're still really close. There's a reason for that. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and back to your question, I think we, like I said, life is all about change. There is no such thing as stay the same. Even in a marriage, right? You get married and fully expect things to change. They're not supposed to be exactly the same, right? Any relationship, it's growing. It's supposed to. And over our decades of life, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, beyond, we are always growing, and not only just year after year, but we're supposed to be changing. We're not supposed to stay the same. So if we look in the mirror, we don't look like we did when we were 18 or 20. That's okay, because we're not supposed to. What I love is that as we age, we actually are able to gain more credibility. Yeah. And I love that too. And hopefully we're becoming more wise. And it's almost like, right up until you're about 50, it's all about knowledge, having the knowledge, right? And then that shifts a little bit when you get a little further on in your decades. And hopefully that knowledge that's metabolized turns into wisdom. And it's just a way of knowing, just automatically knowing what to pay attention to, what not to, what to focus on, what not to, what matters, what doesn't matter. And then we can keep learning, but you get a lot more perspective on life. So I just want to say to anyone under 50 out there, you've got a lot to look forward to, because I'll tell you what, I'm in my 60s now, and I like my life much better now than I did in my 30s or my 20s. I know that might sound strange to some people.
Not really, actually. I remember my father-in-law saying the same thing to me. Like, he said, in your 30s and 40s, you're still working, you're still making your life. And then when you hit your 50s and 60s, even more so, it's a better life, because the hard work is done. Right. And you're kind of like, I might be different for you, but I think for him, what he felt was, not only can I enjoy, the work that I've put into my life, but it feels like he still worked. I mean, he was almost 80 when he retired. So he's, he didn't work physically anymore, but he did work. Like, every day he was going into work, but he, it was a different kind of work, right? It was that wisdom that he could share.
Probably, I'm thinking the big difference, at least from my perspective, and what I see out there with other people's lives, is that, it seems like the first part of your career, it's almost like you're doing what you think you're supposed to do. And you're doing it you're just like paddling fast, right? And I think as we get older, we start doing less of what we don't want to do anymore and more of what we do. And a lot of us, 50, 60, 70 years old, a lot of women I know are busier than ever. They're not the same things that they were doing in their 20s and 30s, but they're very busy, very active. But the difference is that when you get a little bit older, you understand that you can do things that you want to do that actually nourish you on an emotional level, and not just all that stuff that you had to do because you thought it was expected of you. But you get to do the things you really want to do. You look forward to the things that you're doing, and you can more easily say no to the things you don't want to do. So there's a whole shift of perspective, I think, as we get older.
Yeah. And I'm starting to see that, right? I'm starting to see and feel that myself, right? Like, like, for example, I was, invited to a show. Two different friends invited me to the same show. And when I got the invitation, I was like, no, that's not a thing for me, right? Like, I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
right? And I didn't have a problem saying, sorry, I can't make it.
Yeah.
Right. And my daughter was like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, I love their company and I would do almost anything with them, but I don't want to go see this show. Why would I
Mhm.
waste my time? I can sit and knit on my couch, watch a hockey game instead of
Yeah.
going to a show that I'm not going to enjoy. And if I got to pay $150,
Oh,
that's
man.
even worse. Like, I don't,
Right.
why, right? It's not worth my time or my money, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And but if I was in my 20s and they had asked me, I probably would have said yes to both of them as
Right.
long as they were on different nights, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I would have seen the show twice, not enjoyed it, but to be with my friends, I would have made it, right?
Miserable, but a people
Right?
pleaser. So made my, hey, I'm part of the
Exactly.
gang.
Yeah. Right. And okay, so people pleasing, I'm glad you said that. Many times, and maybe you can even correct me if I'm wrong, many times I have done, like I've gone to movies or I've gone to events with friends
Mhm.
that I really didn't want to go to, but I
Mhm.
went to be with my friend,
Mhm.
right? Is that people pleasing? Because I enjoy being with my friend,
Yeah.
right?
I would say this, well, it does qualify technically, but sometimes, I mean, everyone has this issue. They really do. I was just talking to a client the other day about things that she's learned to say no to and things that she still says yes to, even though she kind of wishes she hadn't. And I said, well, how's this? How about just in case, because the people you love, but you don't want to do the thing that they want to do, that's okay. How about an alternate? Or just tell them, like, you know what? I would love to do that with you, but that's not my cup of tea. I prefer not doing that. I hope that's okay. Maybe we can take a rain check. And then how about next week we go do this thing together? Wouldn't that be fun? So I always suggest an alternate. Like I know somebody who's her friend, her idea of getting together is going out to an expensive restaurant. And
Ooh,
she knows it's going to be, and it's okay, but the food that her friend chooses is never quality food, and it's always going to be a lot of money and drinking and the whole thing. And she's like, but she does it anyway, sometimes just to see the friend. And I said, why don't you have an alternate? Like just come up with well, how about this? Not that, but how about this? But that would be a really good way to start, as a matter of just habit, thinking of things that are alternates and just telling them straight up, I love you guys, and that thing, just not my deal. Not gonna, but let's do something else, right?
so
So
that you're telling me then that this is still going to happen when I'm in
mhm.
my 70s.
Probably, yes.
Mm.
People will keep inviting you to
Great
things,
news.
and just tell them polite, diplomatic, but tell them what's so. You don't want them
Yeah.
to think, oh, well, that Tina, she just doesn't want to do anything anymore. Not true,
Right. And that's,
right?
yeah.
Or
And even if that,
she doesn't want to
yeah,
hang out with us anymore. Not true.
right. And even if it's true that I don't want to go out to shows, come to my
Right.
house or let me come to
Right.
your house. Yeah, I get that. That's actually
Yeah.
really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay, so we're um coming close to all my questions. So if there's anything you want me to ask you, you let me know. How do you approach like addressing body image
Hmm.
concerns? Because I'm pretty sure like most women put weight on during menopause. And then even if they are lucky enough to lose it, they are dealing with a whole new body shape and size and whatever comes with that, right? So
Mhm.
how do you address that? How do you help them cope with that?
Well, everyone's different, first of all. There's no cookie cutter. Everyone goes through everyone has a different journey in this. I think the first thing is just to understand, not even understand, be aware of how much pressure gets put on us by our culture and marketing messages. And just to bring awareness to that is huge. When I was 5 years old, I thought I was supposed to look like these pretty ladies on the covers of magazines, and you open up the magazine, they're wearing these amazing clothes, but they're full grown women. I don't know what I was thinking. You know?
You had no options, right?
Yeah, but
Because
that's just
me
what I
like
thought. I wanted to be beautiful like these ladies, but I was 5 years old. So what, like I said, didn't make any sense. But but it also doesn't make any sense for grown women to be looking at other people and trying to compare themselves to them. No, no. Plus, whatever we're seeing, like celebrities, famous people, anybody in a magazine.
It's not
um,
real.
yeah, they don't really look like that, or they don't look like that all the time, for sure. So we have to be aware of how much we're comparing ourselves to other people, and those examples we're comparing ourselves to are not even real or realistic, and why bother, right? So anyway, that's the first thing. Just bring your awareness to what kind of pressures you're putting yourself, under. Like, why should I look like this person? Yeah, so and so looks amazing at that age, but what's that got to do with my life?
Well, and also too, like when I was in my 20s, sure, I looked like that. I was, thin, I was beautiful, but now, you look at yourself and you go, but I want to look the way I did when I was in my
Yeah,
20s,
yeah.
right? Like I
Well, you
know
just said
women,
it.
there's, yeah,
Yeah, the beauty thing, I think really we've done ourselves a disservice when we start thinking of our culture's concept of what beautiful is. I mean, oh my gosh, that is so out of whack, right? I think it's just important and that is another reason to tap into our intuition. And when
yes.
we start treating ourselves better and we can think more clearly, and we allow ourselves to become less stressed, we actually do have a better sense of our own self-worth, our self-love, self-acceptance. And I think it's just, now I'm not saying you shouldn't care about how you look or want to, look or feel a certain way, but do it for you, right? Like if women go get procedures at the dermatologist's office, I'm not going to judge. That's okay. As long as they're doing it for them and they don't have some crazy, body dysmorphia. That's always a thing. People who think they're something, really ugly or unflattering or whatever, and they're not, or there's just no reason for them to think that. It's just
I agree.
ridiculous.
It's funny when you say that. I saw a quote just yesterday, and it was, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Hmm.
And then right underneath the quote was, but I have to remember I am the beholder. Right. And I
True.
thought, oh my God, that is so true. Right.
Yeah.
If I look at myself and I feel like I look beautiful, then that's all I need. Right.
Hmm.
When I look at you or I look at any other person in the world, right, they're beautiful the way they are
Hmm.
in one way or another. Now, don't get me wrong. I have said, that is not a very nice looking person. Right. But usually it's because when they open their mouth, the
Hmm.
words that come out and the tones that come out, I don't like that. Right.
Right. Yeah.
They're mean and they're nasty. And I think, why do you have to be so mean and nasty? Now,
Hmm.
we could start a whole new conversation on
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
that's kind of the reality. Right. And I think if we remember that, I am beautiful because of who I am, that's
Hmm.
what's important.
Yeah, I think some people, they get caught up. I remember my entire first part of my life was being concerned about what other people thought of me, especially judging me, how I looked, if I wasn't wearing the right size of clothing or my hair wasn't a certain way or what, I don't even know, right? So I was concerned about other people's opinions of me. But the truth of the matter is, other people are usually just more concerned about themselves. They're not even thinking about me. That's number one. Number two, does it matter? Number three is, I think what true beauty is, when people feel like if you're concerned about people thinking, or judging your looks or your whatever it is, just remember that people will always remember the way you make them feel. They'll always remember that about you, like, oh yeah, that person was really nice, or they really helped me. They're not going to go, oh, well, that person, shoo, those shoes and that purse. No, I don't think so. No, no, they're not going to even notice that. It's what you did, who you were, as a person.
Yep.
That's really what's important.
That's what's they're gonna, I mean, they're gonna remember you because of how you made them feel.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And they're gonna, when they see you again, they're gonna go, oh yeah, I like her. Right. But
That's right. Yeah.
they're not gonna say, oh, I like her because she's beautiful. I
Right.
like her because she made me feel like I belong, like I,
Yeah.
you know,
As a matter
I
of fact, you
deserve.
probably don't want to be a person if you're extreme, like just happen to be an extremely attractive person. To me, that would almost be a little crazy making because who, I mean, wouldn't you kind of question why people like you? You know, did they like me for what's going on here? Or do they really like me as a person? Wouldn't that just drive you crazy? So, I think it's okay that we don't all look like Barbie dolls.
I agree. I
Because
agree.
then you don't have to be insecure about questioning people's motives or distrusting, why are they hanging
Absolutely.
around me? Why does that guy want to go out with me? Right?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love it. I love that. I think we had a wicked conversation today. I don't know if we touched on everything that you do, right? I'll ask you one more question, just so
Okay.
that we do end on what you do. What
Okay.
role does self-care play in enhancing confidence for women over 40? And what are some self-care practices you recommend?
Oh boy. Um, I know this is going to sound a little boring, but I say get better sleep. I think a lot of times we stayed up too late because we were watching that show. And then, oh yeah, okay, well, the alarm's going to go off in the morning at whenever it's going to go off. I would say just pay attention to your sleep because sleep is when our bodies actually renew and rejuvenate and take out the trash. I know that sounds bizarre. And we also don't want to be eating too close to when we're going to sleep as well. But good quality sleep can be transformative. And I think that we take it for granted. Maybe it's that old type A kind of behavior. You can sleep when you're dead. But I think self-care, I would say sleep is huge.
I do.
And have some kind of another kind of almost magical thing is in the morning, make sure, and this relates to sleep because you want to get the quality sleep early enough so that you can get up in time to have, I'll just say it's the first hour of the morning. That's how I was taught by my mentor. Your first hour of the morning is what they called planning, thinking, study time. PTS time is what he used to call it. So basically, whatever you're doing, if you're going on a walk with your dog, if you're combined with maybe writing in your gratitude journal, combined with maybe reading a page or half a chapter out of a book, maybe one of the classics, Napoleon Hill, some anyone like that, anything that engages your mind and kind of uplifts you. Maybe you've got a meditation practice in the morning. But the point is, you don't want to be, I know people who they wake up or hear the alarm, grab the phone and start scrolling, right? Messages, social, whatever it is, before they even get out of bed. That sets your day up for disaster. Then you're
Mhm.
always at the effects of your day. So that planning, thinking, study time in the morning, that is a huge form of self-care and a big success tip for people doing any kind of endeavor.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if I did it with this intention, but I don't look at my phone either. There's a certain amount of things that I have to do right before I will pick up my phone. And if I
Hmm.
don't get to those and I do pick up my phone, I will never get to those things. Right.
True.
And even though they're little things, my day starts when I pick up my phone. Right.
Right.
And so that is a good time. I don't really, I'm not very good at meditating. And I know that this is my own, like I don't sit down and actually just do it, right?
Hmm.
Because I always end up falling asleep. So I know that, it's like I
Yeah.
can't do that now because if I fall asleep now, I won't be getting up until
Yeah.
lunchtime. But, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
but
just
I
taking
do that.
control of that first part of your day, just taking control, not being at the effect of what other people are throwing at you, because that's going to be there anyway.
Right.
But just getting control, planning your day. What am I doing? What's my most important thing? Feeding your mind to something good. Like I said, gratitude journaling is always huge. You could even do that at night. So yeah, so that's a huge thing. It's just that first part of your morning, make sure it's your own and you're not
That's excellent.
put out fires someplace. Yeah.
And I'm sure like the women that you talk with, especially the women in their 70s, don't have a problem with that change, right?
You'd be
Or that-
surprised.
Really?
You'd be surprised. Old
Wow.
habits. I talked to a woman, she is a widow in her 70s, and she said, "Oh, don't tell me not to multitask." She's still multitasking.
Dude, I gave that up a long
Yeah, on
time
our phone call, I could tell I could hear noise in the background. I could tell she was doing things. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And okay, I was trying to tell her, she's getting better, but she's in the habit of eating while she's watching television, doing
Oh,
three
yeah.
things during meals, and she lives alone, so
It's not like she has to do it all at the same time.
but that's the way. Maybe that makes her feel like she's in touch with her old life or something. I don't know, but it just kind of cracked me up.
Wow,
You'd be
that is
surprised.
that is really funny, actually. I mean, it's not funny because it's kind
Yeah.
of sad,
But
right?
it's old habits. It's just our old habits, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today.
Yay.
This has been awesome. I love these kind of conversations when they go so naturally and organic. I mean, I know I had to throw in some planned questions in there,
Yeah.
but we had a great conversation. So it
Yeah,
was
I appreciate
really,
it.
really great having you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. It was so much fun.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Confidence in Bloom is a celebration of self-love, a confirmation that even though you may not look like a screen star or a supermodel, they don't even look like that. You are an amazing, desirable, brilliant, gorgeous, talented woman. We offer unconditional love to our partners, our children, our extended family, even our pets. It's high time we got out of our own way and learned to unconditionally love ourselves. In Full Bloom Styling and Coaching offers an online course combined with one-on-one coaching to build confidence, personal branding, and creating your signature fashion look. Chic definitely does come in every shape. So if you want something to believe in, start with yourself. If you'd like to be a guest here on Confidence in Bloom, contact me through Instagram at infobloomstyling or by email at tina@infobloomstyling.com or through the Divas That Care website.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.